In the sun-bleached heart of Texas, in a town called Cedar Falls, there was a single job notice that seemed frozen in time. It hung crookedly on the general store's bulletin board, yellowed and curling at the edges. It read, "Housekeeper and cook needed at Blackbryer Ranch. Good pay, no questions asked." And no one dared answer it, not for months, not in 3 counties. From a distance, the Blackbryer Ranch was breathtaking rolling green pastures stretched toward a horizon of purple mountains, where fine horses grazed under the hush of morning mist, but up close the ranch was silent, lifeless, like a graveyard. The man who owned it, Wade Langston, had not smiled in years. Once a soldier, once a husband, once a father, now only a ghost of a man. His wife had died, bringing their son into the world. The child followed her in death before his 3rd birthday, and with them, Wade's will to live seemed to fade too. But then, on a quiet September morning, a woman named Ruthie Bell Carter arrived. She stepped off the merchant's wagon, carrying nothing but a worn satchel, 2 threadbare dresses, a photograph of her parents, and $3 to her name. Ruthie wasn't a stranger to starting over. Her name had trailed whispers across 2 towns, rumors, scandal, pain, but her resolve was steel. When she knocked on the door of Blackbryer Ranch, she didn't flinch at the scowl that met her. She didn't back away from the silence that followed, because Ruthie knew something about broken people. She was one of them. What happened next wasn't magic. It wasn't love at first sight. It was something quieter, rarer, 2 broken souls stumbling toward healing in the most unlikely place. The town of Cedar Falls barely blinked when Ruthie arrived. Its buildings wore the weariness of time-faded paint, crooked shingles, dusty window panes, the general store, the saloon, the blacksmith, the church. But it was enough. Enough for a woman like Ruthie to find a place to try again. She found the job posting, just as described, fluttering slightly in the warm Texas breeze. Good pay, no questions asked. That suited her just fine. Ruthie had no interest in answering more questions. But Sarah Mitchell, the town's seamstress and elder stateswoman, noticed. "You're either very brave or very foolish," Sarah said, her eyes narrowing with interest. "I haven't decided which yet, maybe both, but I'm here to take the job if Mr. Langston will have me." Sarah hesitated, her voice softening. "Child, that man hasn't lived in a long time. That ranch is a tomb. You know what you're walking into?" "I do," Ruthie answered. "And I've worked for difficult men before." Sarah didn't try to stop her. She only handed her a carpet bag filled with aprons, sewing supplies, and bread wrapped in cloth. "If you're still there by Christmas," she said, "then thank me." The road to Blackbryer wound through golden prairie and oak-dotted hills. By the time Ruthie reached the house, the sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the land. The house stood regal and sad, stone walls, dark wood, shuttered windows, a wide porch wrapped in stillness. Old Pete, the only ranch hand who remained, met her outside the barn. His weathered face carried both kindness and caution. "You're here for the job," he said. "Can't say I'd recommend it." "I still need to try," Ruthie told him. Pete nodded slowly. "Then I'll pray for you both." Wade Langston answered the door with a silence so deep it pressed against her ears. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and heartbreakingly tired. His dark hair was streaked with gray. His storm-gray eyes held years of pain. "I'm Ruthie Bell Carter," she said. "I've come about the job." He stared at her, unreadable. "You know what happened to the last 3 who took this post?" "They left," she answered simply. I won't. He didn't argue. He stepped aside and let her in. The house was beautiful, but abandoned grand furniture, untouched, silver dull, dust motes dancing in shafts of late afternoon light. He showed her the kitchen, her room upstairs, and said only, "You can start tomorrow." Ruthie did. The next morning, before dawn, she lit the stove and brewed coffee. She mixed biscuit dough and fried bacon with practiced hands. Wade appeared in the kitchen, freshly shaved, his presence less ghostly than before. "You don't need to cook for me," he muttered. "Making do isn't living," she replied, sliding the biscuits into the oven. It was the first of many small shifts. Over the following days, Ruthie opened windows, long shuttered, aired out linens that smelled of time, and cleaned rooms that had held only silence. In the parlor, she found a child's rocking chair and a basket of forgotten toys. In the nursery upstairs, untouched for years, she discovered a carved wooden horse, delicate and perfect, waiting forever on the windowsill. Wade caught her there. His voice came sharp, angry. "Put it down." She did but didn't leave. "This was your son's room," she said softly. "I said, get out." "You can't bury their memory, Mr. Langston," she said. "You can only live in honor of it." His defenses cracked just enough for one truth to escape. "His name was Tommy," he whispered. "He would have been 5 last month." It was the beginning. Wade never softened overnight. Grief is not a switch. It's a tide. But Ruthie brought life back into the house, not with grand gestures, but with warmth. With Elizabeth's old recipe book found tucked behind jars. With cornbread and honey butter just the way Tommy liked it. With quiet strength, she reminded Wade of who he used to be. But peace never lasts forever. Silas Morton returned to town, a man from Wade's past, with cold ambition and eyes like sharpened steel. He began circling the ranch, buying neighboring land, making threats wrapped in politeness, and then came the fire. At midnight the barn blazed. Hired men in bandanas stormed the property. Ruthie, with trembling hands, fired the shotgun that saved their home. She had never taken a life before, but when it was over, Wade held her and said only, "You saved us." When Morton returned with veiled threats about Ruthie's past, she faced him down again, this time not with a gun, but with truth. And when Wade asked her to marry him, not out of convenience, but love, she said yes, because at last she had found a place, a purpose, and a man who saw her not as damaged, but as whole. And on a spring morning 6 months later, under a rebuilt barn roof strung with wildflowers, Ruthie Bell Carter became Ruthie Langston. Together, they turned the ranch into a symbol not just of survival, but of rebirth. A place where grief was honored, but not allowed to rule. A place where community stood tall against greed and fire. Where a broken man and a cast-off woman built something no threat could shake. And under the Texas stars, as lanterns glowed and music swelled, Ruthie danced with the man who had become her home. This was Blackbryer Ranch, and this was how it lived again.